So picture this. It's a chilly November in New York City at the cusp of the growing new wave music movement. The New York art scene at this time is an exciting, bizarre, experimental place in general, but you see an ad in the Village Voice that's weird enough to stop you in your tracks. It's for an event called New Wave Vaudeville, and they're looking for a collection of humanity that can only be described as the most chaotic cross-section of the club scene. Egyptian slaves, robot monsters, cretins, Nazis, emotional cripples, piano players. It invites you to Irving Plaza, a venue that hosts bands with names like the Stimulators, the Plasmatics, Blinding Headache, the Misfits, even worse, the band, Foolish Virgin, and other names that can't be repeated here. You show up only to find a living grayscale doll man on stage moving like a rusted robot wearing a clear plastic cape and a studded belt, and belting out the most otherworldly opera you've ever heard. He's Klaus Nomi, and he's just one aspect of the strangeness that's about to emerge in the 1980s.
I'm Klaus Nomi, I'm from the planet Nomi. I'm wearing black lipstick so you can see my lips, and you can see what I'm doing with them.
Nomi would have a very short career, dying in 1983 before his career could truly take off. He emerged as an artist that would be admired by the likes of David Bowie, and declared himself to be an alien. He wasn't, by the way. He was a simple pastry chef who occasionally appeared in low-budget satirical operas as a way to show off his pipes. He wasn't around long enough for us to know if his strangeness was just for show or if it ran through his everyday life. Like many maverick 80s musicians, it may have all been for show, but some performers were pretty peculiar in all aspects of their life. So who was actually weird and who was surprisingly boring behind closed doors?
That's all.
Bjork may be best known for her surreal 90s solo work, but she began her rise to fame in the 80s as a member of the Sugar Cubes, so we're gonna count her here. If you think that's cheating, well, there's a comment section for a reason.
Please be kind to him. He's a good boy.
While many performers' stage personas can be a little strange, Bjork has always seemed to carry her creative strangeness both on and off stage. A 2006 UK poll singled her out as the most eccentric celebrity in the world. That was 2 decades ago, and she's only become more creative since then. Let's start with her ever-changing stage presence. There's the 2003 concert in which she performed while covered in doilies. The Prince's Trust appearance the same year included a full jewel-encrusted face mask. Her 2008 tour featured a completely head-obscuring headdress made of huge pom-poms, and a 2012 festival appearance included a costume made of oily black tubes. But maybe she's most well known for her iconic swan dress, which she wore to the 2001 Academy Awards, where she mimicked laying an egg on the red carpet. Well, she's probably best known for beating up a reporter in the Bangkok airport once, but we can't show that. Sorry. But yeah, that was weird too. Also, offstage, with less violence, Bjork became known for unusual statements during interviews, expressing an artistic sensibility that's more than just a persona. At the 1998 Brit Awards, her acceptance speech consisted of 4 words: "I am grateful grapefruit." And who can forget Bjork talking about her TV?
Look at this. This looks like a city, like a little model of a city.
And then there's Drawing Restraint 9, a film she appeared in, directed by her then husband Matthew Byrne, which, you don't take part in something like this unless you're a little weird. Synth maestro Gary Numan is, to all appearances, a guy with an intentionally weird stage presence. When he first started trying to join bands as a teenager, he adopted the dramatic stage name Valerian, naming himself after a French sci-fi comic book character. His last name isn't even Numan. It's Webb. He picked the very human-sounding last name Numan after seeing it in a phone directory under a listing for plumbers. When he formed his band Tubeway Army, which would be an excellent name for a plumbing company by the way, he scored a hit with the song Our Friends Electric in 1979. It wasn't until 2014 that Numan revealed that the song was actually about a robot prostitute.
Nice software!
He quickly followed up that initial hit with the smash single Cars in 1980 and found himself in way over his head. Despite his pop star ambitions, he was a socially awkward guy who had been diagnosed with Asperger's at the age of 14. He coped with his sudden fame and stage fright by cultivating a robotic alien stage persona that masked his desire to be virtually anywhere but performing in front of people.
You want to settle down and...
This would be the second World Tour I've done, and
That's enough, isn't it?
Fortunately, as he got older, Numan became a bit more comfortable on stage, telling The Guardian in 2013, "I used that persona for long enough that it enabled me to feel natural, and then I didn't need it anymore." In his personal life, Numan has expressed a pathological fear of snakes. And while that isn't too unusual, Numan took it to another level, telling The Guardian in 2014, "I nearly stabbed someone once. I was in a bar in Mexico. He and someone sat in a booth next to us and tried to impress people by opening his jacket and showing me a snake. I had a penknife. All I remember is I jumped on the table and yelled, 'Come near me and I'll kill you.'" Look, it's no secret that Prince was a bit of an oddball, and it went way beyond typical rock star strangeness. He was famously enamored of the color purple and would insist that nobody sharing the stage with him, not just bandmates, but even opening acts, be allowed to wear the color. He also allegedly painted his LA rental home in 2006 completely purple and even ran purple water through the home's fountains, obviously upsetting his landlord. The two settled the ensuing lawsuit without incident, reportedly after Prince paid him $1 million to undo the renovations. Prince was fond of a number of athletic pursuits, and according to many, he was good at all of them despite his short stature. You already know about his basketball prowess thanks to Charlie Murphy.
"This cat can ball, man."
But that wasn't his only sport. In his book Mo Meta Blues, Roots drummer Questlove related a story about a skate party Prince threw in a remote location. When he showed up, Prince was wearing the most Prince roller skates possible. As he described them, they were clear skates that lit up, and the wheels sent a multicolored spark trail into your path. Now, lest you think this is another tall tale about Prince, Eddie Murphy himself confirmed it, because naturally, Eddie Murphy was there too.
He had skates that when he skated, they would light up.
So it was a dark skating, you just see Prince skating around?
Yeah.
And of course, Prince was skating circles around everybody because he was a superstar skater too. Go figure. You want more Prince?
Yes.
Of course you do. The famously prolific musician managed to be so prolific by allegedly never sleeping, bragging in a 1985 interview that he had yet to meet the person who could stay awake longer than he could. Perhaps this is because to Prince, time had no meaning. In a 2011 Guardian interview, he offered that because he was a devout Jehovah's Witness, he never celebrated his birthday, and without birthdays, he simply couldn't age, explaining, "Time is a mind construct, it's not real." Everybody knows that the late great king of pop Michael Jackson was extremely eccentric. I mean, come on, regular people don't live in amusement parks.
I've never lost a water balloon fight. I'm the Michael Jordan of water balloon fighting.
In the 80s, though, Jackson experimented with different flavors of weirdness on a daily basis. There was his preference for exotic pets. He had a pet chimpanzee named Bubbles who slept in a crib in his room and seemed to follow him everywhere. That included the recording studio, where Jackson's insistence on asking Bubbles how he felt after each take apparently interfered with recording sessions that were being held with Freddie Mercury, who eventually just abandoned their joint project altogether. When Bubbles became aggressive, Jackson became nervous that he'd attack his newborn son. That didn't stop him from apparently adopting two more chimps though, Max Jackson and Action Jackson. He also had a giant boa constrictor named Muscles, a llama named Louie, and a couple of tigers he housed at Neverland Ranch, along with other exotic animals. Then there were his sleeping accommodations. In the mid-80s, he cultivated a fondness for snoozing in hyperbaric oxygen chambers, coughing up about $1 million for one of his own. And then there was this obsession with Joseph Merrick, who everybody knows as John Merrick, who everyone really knows as the Elephant Man. Jackson's take on him was that he could relate to feeling like an outsider. According to reports from 1987, his interest prompted the singer to offer up a cool $1 million to acquire Merrick's bones from the London Hospital Medical College, which turned down the offer. Jackson later denied the report, despite it being confirmed by both his manager and the hospital, and said he had nowhere to put a bunch of old bones anyway. The Talking Heads were probably the weirdest band that became a household name to come from the late 70s New York City punk scene. They stood out by virtue of not being punk at all, at least aesthetically. They were the leading edge of the post-punk scene, clean-cut, rock-solid musically with a decidedly poppy, eclectic sound. And that was thanks in no small part to leading man David Byrne.
I'd like to write a song about hairdos, not about the people under them. Then the do's have a power by themselves.
Like Gary Numan and so many other musicians, Byrne adopted a quirky, spasmodic stage persona to mask his feelings of awkwardness and anxiety. The whole picture was complete when Byrne sang tense songs from the point of view of a serial killer, while occasionally slipping into French. Perhaps the purest distillation of Byrne's singular creative oddness is the 1986 feature film True Stories, which he co-wrote and directed. But even in his everyday life, Byrne hasn't stopped his boundless creativity. His well-known love of bicycling, which he's written about extensively, prompted the New York Department of Transportation to invite him to be a judge in a bike rack design competition. Instead of judging it, Byrne just sent in a bunch of his own designs, themed around various locations in New York City. Without hesitation, the department invited him to fabricate the racks, and they'd install them, leapfrogging the competition entirely. Ultimately, his eclectic and demanding behavior caused the Talking Heads to have a very unhappy split. Byrne left the band, and the other band members found out about it by reading it in the newspaper. Byrne has since called himself a little tyrant and expressed regret for his behavior as a young, anxious artist. Malcolm McLaren isn't known so much for his own musical endeavors. He's far better known for being the guy who dressed up a bunch of British ruffians, threw them on stage with instruments, and called them the Sex Pistols.
Now, what about the accusation that you're more into chaos than anything else?
Well, that's an accusation by people who really don't understand what kids want.
The band was named after McLaren's punk clothing store, which was just called Sex. While their career lasted for all of 6 months and one album, the impression they left was indelible, in no small part thanks to McLaren's intense manipulations, documented in the 1980 film The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. After his death in 2010, director Julian Temple called him a kind of anti-Simon Cowell. Where Cowell existed to cultivate the most palatable music, McLaren wanted only to cause creative chaos. In a piece for The Guardian, Temple recalled McLaren reducing Richard Branson to tears by refusing to allow him to produce The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. Johnny Rotten called McLaren the most evil man in the world.
He deserves his concrete slippers, but I'm not going to be the one to give them to him.
Others who knew McLaren in real life described him as one of the most flighty individuals ever, equally capable of both kindness and cruelty, wisdom and stupidity, but also a man with a keen eye for talent whose biggest act had none. The depth of his own musical weirdness is illustrated by the highly unlikely hit single from his own group, Malcolm McLaren's world-famous Supreme Team, a scratch-infused proto-rap record featuring lyrics that were mostly just recycled square dance chants. Buffalo Gals peaked at 65 on the UK charts, and the accompanying video showed up on MTV in the network's early days when they would play pretty much anything. McLaren's temperament is usually attributed to his difficult upbringing. His own son recalled that because McLaren didn't attend school as a kid and had a neglectful mother, he never developed the traditional social skills that most other people had, calling him chaotic but brilliant. Frank Zappa is a well-known name, but his one and only pop hit came in the early 80s. Valley Girl mocked oblivious upper-class girls from the San Fernando Valley. Spoken vocals were provided by his teenage daughter Moon, who spouted a fountain of the type of jargon associated with the subculture at the time. Valley Girl got virtually every kid in America mimicking its twisted take on teenage slang and coined the term.
What exactly was going through your mind when you named her Moon Unit?
Well, actually, it was a choice between that or Motorhead. I told my wife.
It's a testament to Zappa's whole weird aesthetic that the song was a brutal takedown that went over everyone's heads. For the entirety of his career, which began in the 50s, Zappa was supremely uninterested in making music that people could easily understand. And though he was often accompanied by a revolving lineup of supremely talented musicians, he also pioneered the synclavier, the first digital audio workstation, so he wouldn't have to deal with people who couldn't keep up with him. Maybe the weirdest thing about Zappa was that he wasn't all that weird in real life, despite his outlandish songs about booger bears and, like Gary Numan, robotic prostitutes.
Nice software!
Zappa was so normal in real life that it was addressed in a notoriously unfunny sketch when he made his hosting appearance on Saturday Night Live in 1978.
He really doesn't get high. Frank, like, you really don't get high, do you?
No, I don't do drugs.
Ultimately, it was all about the music, and sometimes the legendary stage antics, designed only to accentuate the music. In Zappa's words, you can't write a chord ugly enough to say what you want to say sometimes, so you have to rely on a giraffe filled with whipped cream. The Plasmatics were one of the most provocative bands of the punk era. Lead singer Wendy O wasn't so much a frontwoman as she was the embodiment of the band's nonconformist credo. Band manager / founder Rod Swenson said of his muse in an interview with Louder, "She had this attitude that she'd rather be dead than part of this conformist world." Plasmatics were a concept set up around Wendy Williams. She would be the centerpiece. The band became notorious for staging some of the craziest performances in rock history, taking sledgehammers to televisions, chainsawing guitars in half, and blowing up cars. A national television appearance on the late-night variety show Fridays quickly made Williams the poster child for terrifying musical anarchy. The band was monitored by police at their shows, and they were arrested multiple times for public indecency.
And we wonder, maybe if she'd quiet it down just a little bit
While Williams wanted to success as a solo artist under the wing of Kiss bassist Gene Simmons, her allergy to conformity remained. In a 1987 interview with journalist Frank LaVecchia, she spelled out her worldview. It's easy to go with the flow, easy to go with the formula. Everybody does not have to have the same taste. I don't sing like anybody else. The way I sing is fun, and if somebody doesn't like it, tough shit. It wasn't some drug-fueled frenzy though. Like Zappa, Williams' strangest attribute may have been that she was so straight-laced in her everyday life. By all accounts, Williams was completely sober in the 80s and was a lifelong vegetarian. In the same month, she appeared on both the covers of Kerrang! And the Vegetarian Times. In 1991, she declared that she was done with people and moved to Connecticut, where she became an animal rehabilitator until her death in 1998.